3, 2, 1, let's go.
152 yards. Should be just a nice, comfortable 9-iron for him. They're going to go nuts when he hits this thing.
Yo, 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 ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, golf fans of the internet, welcome in again to the Preferred Lines podcast. I'm Joe Idoni. The partner next to me is John Haselbauer. We're excited to break down the Scottish Open. We're excited to recap the John Deere. John, somebody get me my money, man. Chris Gotterup makes it back-to-back winners on my side. I apologize on your side. Tough scene at the end there for Ben Kohles. We'll get to it. Your thoughts on the final round of the Deere and Silvis?
Yeah, I'm, like you said, excited to talk Scottish Open this week. You can talk all you want about John Deere. We were going to have something happy to discuss either way, whether it was you or me, because you were on Gotterup and I was on Kohles, and it seemed like for the last 6 holes, it was going to be one of those two guys. Yeah, like I said, he was 90-1. He was a long shot. Hasn't won on the PGA Tour before. That was priced in. You know what you're kind of signing up for. It's a thrill of ride, and you don't know where it's going to go. We know where it ended up, which was the lake left of the green on 18. That's where it ended. A crash landing, a dramatic finish. So fans kind of got what they wanted, I would assume. Maybe they wanted a playoff at the end of the day, but you got a big-time winner. You got a great story, and Chris Gotterup comes back. We'll talk about his story, what the John Deere Classic means to him and what the John Deere Classic as an event means to the PGA Tour. A lot of good stuff in there. So heartbreak for the second year in a row. This is where Brian Campbell last year ripped my heart out in a playoff for the second time that year. So it's really just a house of horrors for me at the John Deere Classic. Although JT posted like 4 years ago was a fond memory. Otherwise, it's been not my favorite, but yeah, a great event to watch. Talk to me about the Gotterup sweat experience. Congratulations, my friend.
I love it. It's the second time this year where I felt like he was totally out of it, and I flip it on. He's come back. We'll talk more about that later. But anytime Gotterup's in tears, I've got a big smile on my face in the year 2025 and 2026. So fun victory. I'm sure you're hopeful that you'd be very happy to never go back to the Quad Cities again with your recent experiences. But I do got to mention 3 in a row now, because Keith hit an LPGA winner for the good folks over at Read the Line. If you are not a subscriber there, code running across the bottom, Lines25. You should be there. Keith Stewart is the man in the industry that is in more media centers and boots on ground Monday through Wednesday than anybody else. Our guests will tell you that that's true because he's in many of them here in just a second, who we're excited to interview. But you want to be a better. You want to continue this red hot run with us in the month of July and the late summer of 2026. Go on over and subscribe. Now, John, without further ado, all right, John, excited for this one. Joining us now on the pod, the man behind every sports business article that you will read over the Sports Business Journal. He covers the world of professional golf and the business and the media behind it better than anyone else. Josh Carpenter, welcome to the program. Great to see you. Good evening.
Yeah, great to be with both of you tonight. Happy to do it.
All right, Josh, here's what I got to start off. You do an incredible job covering the business of professional golf. We're in a space now where, we've got fractured tours. Some of our Mount Rushmore faces of the sport are in the news for all the wrong reason. Everyone and their mother has an argument in this infinity circle of how to fix the world of professional golf, yet golf's succeeding. People are watching more than ever. The popularity seems to be way up. How are they doing it?
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's been, I think you can go back really to, the COVID time period ended up being maybe the catalyst for, but let's just talk like the interest in golf as a whole really started a couple of years before COVID. We were seeing more on-course participation. You saw the rise of things like, Top Golf and other forms of driving range entertainment. So that really started to scale up before COVID, but then COVID happened and everyone just kind of was forced to the golf course because that's one of the only things you could do. And so that really has just continued. I mean, the numbers keep going up every year around participation. And then you add in this extra juice that's been around the sport in terms of this split between players that joined LIV. And you've had this civil war that's been going. I mean, LIV was launched in, fall of 21, really. So really 5 years at this point. And even before that, you had a couple years where there was a lot of talk about, new potential leagues, Saudi Golf League, PGL, all these other things. So you've really had 5 or 6 years now going that you've had that extra kind of off-course drama like that you've really never had in golf. I mean, you had the kind of, Tiger and Phil and this and that, but like there was never any juice like between Monday and Thursday. I think that's contributed to the interest in the sport. I think that's really helped it. And now you've just got another long runway going a couple of years into the future of what does all this look like? What's LIV look like in 2 years if it exists? What does the PGA Tour look like? So really a lot of factors have kind of contributed to the, growing interest in the game.
I wanted to kind of put you in, before I let John ask his question, in the room with one of these tournaments. And as we kind of just wrap up the John Deere, I think about the John Deere Classic. I think about the Wyndham Championship. I think about my hometown Honda / Cognizant. Do you think right now they know where they stand in this pecking order? And if you're in charge of one of those tournaments, how nervous are you that you're going to get sent to the Challenger Series?
Yeah, I think I really don't think they know yet. I mean, we've got the Wyndham Championship, which is about an hour and a half from where I live here near Charlotte, and about a month. And, Wyndham's title sponsor deal for that tournament is up after this event. And rarely do you, but like, there's no clear path forward for that event. Like, is it going to be here next year? Is it not going to be here? And you rarely get to the event's week in the final year of its sponsor contract and know what's going to happen. It's a very odd kind of situation to be in, and that for a number of other tournaments as well. I don't know what those tournaments are going to look like. I mean, you would think that a tournament like the John Deere, which just signed its sponsor on through 2030, they're going to be locked in some form. You would think that, but at the same time, John Deere is probably, look at today's a great example. You could look at that leaderboard and you can say, okay, Lucas Glover's there. But outside of Lucas Glover, going into today, maybe Max kind of went low today, but there were no real big names. If you take away Chris Gotterup, you've got Ben Kohles, you've got Lee Hodges. Well, in 2 years, Chris Gotterup might not be allowed to play in that tournament.
Yeah.
Based on everything that we've reported and heard, is like the tour's not going to let these track one guys, championship now, series players compete on the Challenger Series. And so if I'm John Deere, I'm thinking, all right, well, today I was able to get Gotterup as a winner, but in 3 years, Ben Kohles might be my biggest name, or Lee Hodges might be my biggest name, and that's not what I signed up for as a sponsor. So I've had, some tournament directors and sponsor people, like the lawsuit word has been thrown around. Not necessarily they're definitely going to do that, but like they've got to figure that out, like what that looks like, because what they signed up for, again, is not what they're going to end up getting in 2028, because there were a number of these kind of Challenger Series level sponsors that signed on through 2030 just this year. You had John Deere, Valspar. I mean, all these that are kind of in that Challenger Series level that you would think at least are on through 2030. So they've got to figure that out. They've got to figure out what the TV looks like. So there's a lot of like kind of tangled web, I guess, is what I'm trying to say in terms of figuring this out.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be interesting to see how that progresses. At least we have another year to figure it out before 2028 sets in. Another topic that was, swirling certainly in our circles on the Preferred Lines podcast when we talk about betting, were Jordan Spieth's comments about how sports betting has influenced the atmosphere of crowds, and maybe when crowds get out of hand. Spieth's comments were essentially that sports betting is kind of contributing to that. I'm curious, from your perspective, is the PGA Tour seeing it in the same way that Jordan Spieth is, where this is a problem caused by sports betting? Obviously, there's a lot of sports book partners like FanDuel, DraftKings that are, in cahoots with the PGA Tour. So are they working with these regulated operators to make a change or add more scrutiny to these events? Or does the PGA Tour not view it yet as an issue?
I don't know if they view it as an issue, but I think they're constantly. I mean, there's an entire betting division at the PGA Tour, or what I don't know I don't know if it's sports betting or wagering or whatever, but like there's an entire division dedicated to that of the tour. So that's something that's kind of constantly in the back of their mind, and has been since sports betting, became legalized here in the States. I don't know. It feels like it was a couple years ago. It's probably been closer to like 7 or 8 years ago at this point. And so, it's something that they're constantly working on. I wouldn't say that necessarily you've had any like big thing that they're working on in terms of change, because I know, Jordan made those comments earlier last week. You had some issues with the crowds and Wyndham at the U.S. Open. I don't know if that was necessarily sports betting related. So like from my point of view, I can't really recall too many, glaring issues of, fans creating issues for players on the course. But certainly like regulation and how that all looks, like that's something the tour is constantly working on and is probably pretty high on its priority list in terms of like, that's not, regulation and how fans act on the course. Like that's never going to be kind of a back burner issue for the tour. That's always going to be top of mind. And what they're working on and what they're looking at to make sure that, because that's once it starts impacting the competition, you just lose all credibility. And so they can't have that happen.
Totally. And I feel like it was more a fear of what may be to come from Spieth rather than what's actually happening now. So I totally agree with you on that. Another question I wanted to ask you too, because you broke the news earlier this week about with TGL and the broadcasting rights, that it seems like ESPN is likely to renew there, but there's also interest from some other broadcasting partners. I'm curious with the elephant in the room with Tiger Woods' situation, public image, and obviously his profound influence on TGL. How does Tiger Woods' availability impact these negotiations? Obviously, that asset is a much more valuable asset if you you've got Tiger than if you don't.
Yeah, I think it's a huge part of it. Maybe not a lot of people have talked about that yet. But I mean, yeah, every Jupiter match was, okay, will he or won't he play? We know Tiger was injured and whatever, coming back from whatever, I forget which ailment he had this year when he was trying to make his return. There's been so many, but you had the TGL marketing guys, every matchup was 3 players, but every time Jupiter played, they were promoting 4 players, or Tiger was on the, in the arena being interviewed at every match. So yeah, that's a huge thing. Obviously Tiger's back from rehab, it appears. He was at the event up at Travelers a couple weeks ago. Seems like he's in a good place. I don't know where that lands with a potential broadcast partner. I mean, if I'm a potential new or returning broadcast partner for TGL, I'm not counting on Tiger, because his availability has been sort of so scattered, not necessarily over the first year. I mean, I think the first year of TGL, he pretty much played in every match that Jupiter had, right? But obviously this year was pretty hit or miss. But, from where I sit, Tiger's availability just in golf has been so kind of spotty. I mean, really, guys, we're talking about over the last decade at this point, if not longer. I'd be hard pressed to say like, hey, we're going to go in and bank on, X amount of viewers or, something like that, just based on Tiger's availability. I think at this point, if it's in year 3 and you're still really banking on Tiger to be your kind of main interest driver, then you've got a problem.
Joe and I have talked a lot about with the shakeup with the PGA Tour schedule. It seems like, I think next year they've announced like we're going to start in February, but we're not super clear when. And we know that Hawaii is not where we're going to start. Where do you think is the best launching point for the PGA Tour season? Is it the week before the Super Bowl where there's nothing against you? Is it the week of the Super Bowl where you can still do waste management before kickoff? Or do you let the football season end and then officially start that week after?
Yeah, I really see it as being, the Century out at Torrey Pines. I think, Rolapp has talked at length about an iconic West Coast venue. I think you've got Century, which was the sponsor of the Hawaii tournament at Kapalua. Obviously, that's no longer. So and Century has signed on for so long at this point. I mean, they've invested a lot of money and really made a big commitment to the tour. Like, they don't want to be some second rung event, Challenger Series event. Like, they want to be a top end event. I think it makes sense. You've already got that kind of brand equity around Century being the opening season of the tournament. To me, it makes sense that that's going to be the opener. And another layer to that is, like Rolapp has said, iconic West Coast, and people have brought up Pebble Beach, and people have brought up, maybe a Riviera. I see Century as being that. I think Pebble likes the place that they are on the calendar, and so I really see that as being this. And again, I'm going past the architecture discussion. I know a lot of people in the architecture community hate Torrey Pines. The vast majority of folks watching that event love watching Torrey Pines. Oh, yeah. It always produces most years it produces a big time winner. People associated with Tiger, because that's where Tiger, even if Tiger's not playing there anymore this season, I feel like Phil always, Phil's a San Diego guy. Like, Phil would usually play that event. Like, that's just a big event, regardless of the golf course and what it looks like, and how it, the architecture around it. So I see that as being the opener. And yeah, I don't know if it's the week before the Super Bowl. I certainly think Phoenix has good potential to be one of those championship series events. And Phoenix really loves Super Bowl weekend. Say what you will about going head to head with the Super Bowl and whether that's good for business. I think it is good for business for Phoenix. There's a ton of juice around that event always. And so I think it, at that point, it just goes down to, well, you're going to start the week before the Super Bowl, or you're going to push you back 2 weeks and start, but then you're starting on Championship Sunday. And I don't see that happening either. Yeah. So to me, it's probably going to be a restart by Phoenix. Who knows where we go.
Yeah, they've really kind of dialed in that timing too, where it leads essentially right up into the national anthem. Josh, before we get you out of here, I wanted to ask you one more, because I know that you've been across and asked Brian Rolapp questions in many of these monumental press conferences that have taken place recently. If you had Brian Rolapp in the chair and you could ask him one question that he had to answer honestly, what would it be?
I would have to ask him about the media deals and what will 2020 or in 2021, because the media deals are through 2030. Yet you've got these changes coming in 2028. Start over. You can't. I don't know that you can just rip those up and just start with new ones in 2028. It's like you're going to have to tweak those, and maybe kind of what we saw with ESPN around the FedEx Cup playoffs and picking up those hours of coverage. Like, that's part of this process, and tweaking those media deals through. Then also, if you get at the end of 2028, you could say, okay, we've got a full season of this that's already occurred in terms of championship and challenger. So they could new or returning media partners, hey, this is exactly what we're going to get over the next 7 or 8 of this term. We're trying to go to them now and saying, well, here's what we've got on paper. Here's what we think you're going to get. But, they might play one season of the championship and the Challenger Series and then make huge changes again. Look at what we saw with TGL in terms of changing the hand rules on the fly in their first season, and how, that's just one example. But look at that change and how it was able to positively affect the league by leaps and bounds over its first 2 seasons, I would say. So I think that's the question I would ask him is, who's on his list of potential partners. Like, I think you're just going to see, if you look at how he worked those NFL deals over the years, 20 years ago, there were, 3 channels to watch NFL games or 4 channels. And now there are probably 8 or 10 different platforms that the NFL airs on throughout the course of the season. So the PGA Tour is kind of in that right now. PGA Tour Golf's only airing on Golf Channel, ESPN, CBS and NBC. So if we look 8 years down the road, is PGA Tour Golf going to be on Amazon? Is it going to be on Netflix, on YouTube, on Apple even? Like, there are so many options out there.
Awesome. Well, on behalf of John and all the people at Read the Line and Keith as well, thank you so much for your time this evening, Josh. We appreciate you coming on with us. We'll talk again soon. Catch you soon, buddy. Let's recap a little bit of John. Let's recap a little bit of Deere. We'll get right into it. We talked a little bit about it at the top of the show. Gotterup 2 in a row. I felt like I had a good beat on it this week. We talked pretty extensively about it was like why these, B-level events we're getting where we get like 2 or 3 of the big names in it. That's where the winners have been coming from. You kind of sided with Griffin. I took the side of Gotterup. Win equity is just awesome with the kid. And the final rounds are off the charts. I mean, he was 6 under in the final round at Sony to erase and come back and grab a victory there. Second lowest round of the day in round 4 at the Sony Open earlier this year in 2026. Did the exact same thing in Phoenix. 7 under 64, second lowest round of the day on the golf course. And then 9 under today at TPC Deere Run, the low round of the day. Brother on the bag, tears in his eyes, chain swinging. It was so cool. It was good to see, and I'm happy for him. And he's firmly on my team. He's my guy now.
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, he's probably in like Brooks' company for you, where it's just like you're going to be looking at your guy most weeks. Danny, you've got your guys, you've got a squad. I've lived in Jersey. You haven't even lived in Jersey, so you don't even have that connection to him. But you're still riding with Gotterup. I respect it. Hope to see. I mean, lock on the President's Cup, no doubt. We'll see him in Medina. Hope to see him in the Ryder Cup at Adair Manor next year. Bright future ahead of him. He's playing great. And I love the story with him. 4 years ago, he came in on a sponsor's exemption. He wrote in like a handwritten note to the tournament director. Like, it'd be such an honor to play for you guys. I just graduated college. It's like a testament to like how meteoric of a rise it's been for Gotterup that he's had to write these letters to get into the events. He wasn't Jackson Coyven coming out of college where like he was just there. And just love the character of the guy who's going like US Open, Travelers, John Deere, Scottish Open. Like, he's going to play 5 straight weeks. It would have made so much sense to skip it, but it meant, so much to him and his beginnings on the tour for what they did to him to give it back. Like a deserving champion. Good on Gotterup.
Another Kohles collapse late, shades of Craig Ranch. Your thoughts before we move on here. Get it off your chest. I know you got some things you gotta get off about Ben Kohles this evening.
Well, live from the Tout House last month, I want to say we did a Ben Kohles redemption chip in greenside. It was a par 5 18. Taylor Pendrith went on to win. All he had to do was par to get into a playoff. Everybody was bogeying that par 5. He was greenside in 2, and he like duffs it into the bunker and makes a mess out of it. And he kind of did the exact same thing on 18. So, it does kind of go back to one of the points we were talking about. It was either last week, the week before. Distance is always an asset. It doesn't matter how short the course is, if there's a lot of less than driver, whatever. These par 5s are really what made the difference. Or you could even say the drivable 4s. Gotterup having that extra gear in the bag to say, I'm reaching the par 5s and 2, all of them, and I'm scrambling for my birdies. Ben Kohles was not scrambling for his birdies, and that was the difference in this tournament. When you looked at that back 9 and he pars both the par 5s, the reason was he was lacking that distance. You can, over the course of a full tournament, stack up birdies on short par 4s, which he was doing throughout the tournament. But when the going gets tough and you're on the back 9 and you need a birdie and you're chasing, you really count on those par 5s to get them. And if you don't have distance, you can't pocket the birdies. And that's what Gotterup does. And that's why he goes low on Sundays.
And just in the aggressiveness and the shots that he tries to pull off, the chip shot on the short drivable par 4 where he really had no angle and he put it up there great. The ballsy one, obviously on 17 where he gets up and down and then he makes the putt. That's the difference, is like willing to take the chance to not only hit the pitch, like try to get it there on the green out of the first cut. Didn't do it. Left himself in a horrible spot. Jarred a putt in the back on 17 there. And then you see Kohles, who just kind of like lags it up there and seemed very content with making par. So good one for the guys. We're going to go for 3 in a row this week. Picks later on in the show. But I did want your thoughts, John, We talked to Josh about it briefly, and we'll see if we're able to get all those. We got to get our guy a little bit better internet connection next time. But his gambling comments took our world by storm this week. You've got a lot of talking heads out there of no idea about the space at all. Have just been frothing, John. They've just been eager to pile on to the betting crew. I want your take on the whole thing. Obviously, there seems to be very obvious contradictions in his relationship and the tweets with FanDuel, and then he is going to essentially attack fans and the betting community for being the reason why this is happening, and said, quote unquote, this is something that we're going to have to tackle very soon. Is betting the problem here, John?
Betting is not the problem. Obviously, we know how we feel about golf betting, and call our opinions biased, whatever. But I think we also are experts in the space of betting. We understand the benefits that having sports betting widely available to golf fans, what that has done to the sport and the interest in it, both from an in-person attendance standpoint and from your couch TV viewership perspective. I can tell you right now, the reason I never gave Liv a chance in the beginning days is because I couldn't figure out how to bet on it, right? And I think people were against Liv from the very beginning, who were golf fan purists, because they didn't understand how to get into it, and it was hard to regulate it because you weren't really sure how legit all the operations were. And so for me, it was hard to get into a sport that didn't have betting legal for it. And I think that's true when you're trying to grow an audience anywhere in any sport. Like if I can bet on a WNBA game, I'm a little bit more likely to have interest in that sport. And what I'll always say about like the fan rowdiness on a course, did it cross the line? I would ask people to say, if they were drunk at the event with no action, no access to betting on it, are they more or less likely to be problematic than a sober person who bet on the golf? Right. And so naturally, I would say it's an alcohol problem in the instances where people are acting like fools and crossing a line and, not being gracious to the players. It's not a betting issue. The betting gets people interested in the golf. The alcohol forces them to cross a line. We don't want anybody crossing a line, but I think it's very good for the sport. Obviously, again, bias, but I think golf is the best sport of all sports to bet. I was having this conversation actually in the pool 4th of July weekend. We were talking about horse betting and how that feels like a degenerate, like the most degenerate sport to bet on, because it's like 2 minutes, it's over. Let's try again. Let's rack it up. Golf betting feels like the most responsible sport to bet, because you put these mini futures in, you put your bets in on a Monday, you got to wait until Sunday to see if it all comes back to you. So you can't be that reckless with golf betting. If you follow us and you put a responsible card out there, there's a very easy way to be strategic about how you spend your money, putting it on golf and still giving yourself a vested interest in the tournament. And that's why I think golf betting is great. It's not going to go anywhere. There are ways to crack down on this if it really did cross the line, which I truly don't believe it has. I don't think we've seen anybody, save from Matsuyama in the playoff at the Waste Management against Gotterup. There was somebody who yelled in his backswing. It's the only time I can remember in the last 5 years where a fan was actively trying to get somebody to mishit the ball while action was happening, right? So I don't think it's a problem. I think it's a fear that it could eventually become a problem, but until it does become a problem, it's not a problem.
I bring it back to, I think it's a bullshit take by Jordan Spieth, and anyone that supports it, I think, is bullshit as well. Betting in sports has been around for 100+ years. They've been betting on the World Cup, Major League Baseball, golf. These guys bet on their Monday and their Tuesday matches out on the course. It is not the issue here. The issue is a combination of things. I think alcohol-induced brashness is definitely one of those, but I also think it's a component of the society we live in now, where everyone is seeking attention and everyone wants a clip for social media. I can remember earlier this year. It was some YouTube streamer kid, Jack Doherty or something like that, who like yelled something in Mackenzie Hughes' backswing and was escorted out of the event and kicked out. And that had nothing to do with betting. That had nothing to do with alcohol, but that was an actual instance where someone is essentially clip farming at a PGA Tour event, and they want that attention. And I think that social media has made people more okay with stepping outside the line of decorum so that they get likes on something. So I think there's a comfortability there, which did not always exist. I think the alcohol point is valid. I mean, Keith even talked about it too, which made a lot of sense to us, how you go to an NBA game and they typically stop alcohol sales like midway through the third quarter at the start of the fourth quarter. You go to a college football game, same thing. And you're in and out in 2-3 hours, right? There's people there from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. who there's an inability to control how much someone is drinking because of the amount and the magnitude in different bars out on the course. And I think that it's just a combination of a lot of things, but to put that on guys and say that people were betting the field plus 10,000 against Wyndham Clark, and it's why they were cheering for things to go off the green, I think it was a horrible take. And anyone that's supporting that out there right now for a couple of clips should be ashamed of themselves.
I totally agree. I also think it was something that Spieth wasn't prepared to answer, and he got like a left field question and he just stream of consciousness the answer to that question in the same way he like wings it on the golf course sometimes, where he's like, how am I going to save par from under this trash can? How am I going to spin an answer to this question of what's up with those crowds based on what's on my mind right now? So I think I'm sure he will be asked again, because so much swirl has come out of this. Like, hey, you're actually affiliated with FanDuel. Why did you say that about sports betting? I'm sure he'll walk back these comments, because obviously we operate in a bubble of our community is here because of sports betting largely. So all we're hearing about is what a horrible take it was. I don't think people should be like showing animosity towards Jordan Spieth. Like, I don't think we want to cross lines ourselves as the sports betting community. We want to continue to push forward. There is a way to responsibly have action on the PGA Tour without crossing a line and making the players feel uncomfortable so close to the fans out on the other side of the ropes.
Yeah, you want new media rights. You want new tournament purses without the sponsors having to pony up all of it. You're going to need sports betting partners, and they have a ton of them already. And you want 10 additional hours of PGA Tour live, like Josh talked to us about, that is coming, and they're picking up additional hours to show us more golf. Well, guess who's watching that golf on a Thursday afternoon at 1 p.m., and they want it on an hour earlier? Because people have action on it. It has nothing to do with people acting out and being idiots on the golf course. Hated that take from Spieth. Hated anyone who has enjoyed it as well. Let's do a little true or false while we're kind of a little hot in the collar here. I wanted to ask you something, because this came out midweek and I thought it was a joke. I didn't think this was serious. Sergio Garcia, the great Sergio Garcia, attempting to qualify for the Open Championship, had this to say, and I had to make a graphic for it, but this is what he said afterwards. It's tough, when you're this age and playing 36 holes and you feel like you need a little bite between rounds. You do that and it doesn't sit well, and you're struggling with your stomach the entire second round. It's tough. John, I am a God-fearing Italian who loves nothing more than a little pasta and red sauce and meat and lumps of cheese. I can't eat that shit during the day. Is this true or false? Is this the worst decision of all time for a mid 36 hole round meal to go back out on the golf course?
I think it might be, Joe. I'm trying to think what's worse. I'm here coming off of, I had gnocchi bolognese with some ricotta right before we got on here. And I'm feeling it too. I'm not ready to do any athletic activity for the rest of tonight. Lasagna, I'll like, outside of just being within tournament hours, he's in between first 18, second 18. I'm not eating lasagna during the day in summer. It's a winter meal for me, or at least like in AC at night when it's cold. It has to be cold when I'm eating lasagna. Do you disagree? Have you ever had lasagna in the summer?
Well, it's never cold in Florida, so I do enjoy a lasagna, but you've got to come into the AC. This is not something that you eat and then you have to go outside. Like, I'm not eating it and going to my son's practice to watch.
No,
This
you're
is
not
a
doing anything
great,
afterwards.
terrific, world-class meal. The timing of it is everything. And like you said, you have lasagna and you've got a podcast for an hour. That's not even a great call. You know,
No.
we can't have to end stream early in that type of situation. Wild by Sergio Garcia. I can't think of anything worse to eat in between rounds when you're trying to qualify than a square of lasagna. 7 layers. Come on, Serge. You're better than that. You know better than that.
I don't even believe him that he did this. I think he was just searching for an excuse. And he was like, I don't know, I didn't play well. Maybe I'll say it was what I have for lunch. What's the first food that comes to mind? Lasagna.
All right, true or false? What do you got for me? Before you do that, before you rip your question, got to mention, segment is always brought to you by True Links, where I have my Trues on the course this weekend. Played horrendous on Friday, played earlier today, won almost all my money back, but felt great while doing it. Was easily able to walk 18 and 18 in the Trues, as always. Great 4th of July sales they had running this past weekend. The winner from a couple of weeks ago, you've still yet to contact me. I'm going to pick another person. I'm going to give you 1 week left. Get in my DMs. John, what do you got for me in the true or false?
Yeah, and I'll just build on that because I busted out a new pair of Trues anti-gravities for the first time. And these are the ones with the dedicated spikes, because I'm a big proponent of the on the course, off the course. I've talked about that a lot. But when I'm on the course and I know I need a good round, I'm going for the ones with the spikes. I made four birdies in a round. I don't think I've ever done that before. And I lipped out a 5th birdie on the 18th hole. Great round. I give all the credit to True and those shoes. Whoever's not responding, biggest L of your life, because you missed a great opportunity to become a better golfer. Somebody else is getting very lucky on the next stream. All right, my true or false. I've been stewing on this one actually since the World Baseball Classic, and it does teeter into the golf world for sure. I'm a patriotic person. It's 4th of July. We're celebrating the 250th. I'm proud of my country and all that. We're losing our edge as a sports fan, as a USA sports fandom entity. They are eating our lunch out there. Norway, obviously, at the World Cup, everybody now aspires to have their own thing. When I was at the Ryder Cup at Bethpage, the European fans chanting for Tommy Fleetwood and Rory McIlroy, everybody has their own chants, and they're doing it in unison. They're chanting Olay across the grounds. It was aspirational stuff, and all we could reply with was USA. That's it. That's all we did. Yeah. We just chanted USA, or we tried to galvanize a crowd on the microphone before the round started to say F you, Rory. That was the best that we could come up with. Gotta be better. And then the World Baseball Classic, I'm watching us play against Venezuela, and the fans in the crowds are like crying. They're so passionate about it, and we're supposed to be here. We need a brand refresh. This is my true or false. Are you as disappointed as I am with the identity of the USA supporter fans?
I would say false. I've been impressed so far with the reactions outside the stadium, inside the stadium. The USA over and over again gets old. They slowed it down a little bit in San Francisco and gave a little pause between the letters and kind of strung it out a little bit, which I thought was much better. Here's what I am high on. As a guy who was born in a town with one stoplight in New Martinsville, West Virginia, anytime you bring country roads into the fold, big ups. Yeah. So country roads may be single-handedly saving the U.S. fan base. Mauricio Pochettino, I'm wondering if you're available in a Dare manner at this point. I love this guy.
Sure.
He's everything. He is the ultimate motivator. He has rallied the entire country around Pochettino. So I'm excited. What I'm worried about, though, John, is I saw Colombia absolutely take over Kansas City. In Argentina took over Miami. Norway took over Miami. If we advance and we play one of these countries, if we go to Colombia and our fans start selling off the tickets to the Colombians who are paying $5,000 to get in, and we're outnumbered in our home country, That's going to be a very concerning part for me. I'm going to give it time. I'm going to say false. I believe in this team. I believe in the spirit. It's been 250 years of the greatest country on earth. I'm not going to shit on us today, but there are lingering concerns moving forward that we got to uphold a standard here.
Yeah, I want to see this. Last thing I'll say, I'll put a bow on this. Like when I was on the grounds and we needed a spark at Bethpage, I want to see a cavalry of horses like in the American Revolution. I want guys on horseback with like the George Washington wigs rallying the crowds and riding a horse through the golf course. Yeah. I want to see that at the next home ground, and I want to see eagles flying. I want bald eagles wherever we can get them. I want them circling the venue. Let's start there. Let's rebuild our identity as a country 250 years later.
A couple of founding fathers, a couple of bald eagles. Are we asking too much? That's your true or false segment. Appreciate True Linkswear as always, John. Let's go ahead and get to the Genesis Scottish Open. Let's do that by starting with our course guide. All right, course guide for the Renaissance Club, obviously presented by the good folks over at Wolf Hammer Golf, the #1 app in the App Store. Sick of tracking stuff by pencil on the scorecard. It rains a little bit. It gets destroyed. You have no idea. You're tallying things up. Your card doesn't match this guy's card. You need an accountant to figure out who won money at the end of the day. Wolf Hammer has solved that for you. It's all in one app. 90 different bets and games available with 15,000 variations. USGA Gin Incorporated. They are going to present to you the course guide for this week and each and every week on the Preferred Lines podcast. John, the Renaissance Club, I'm going to give you a couple notes, and I'm going to let you kind of take this thing over. The big thing for me is the interesting aspect of it in being a newer course and having this idea of modern links set by Tom Doak, where you still get all the visuals of a links golf course. But to me, it plays very much like almost like an American wide Parklands golf course where power is an extremely important asset. There are very small penalties for misses off the tee. But it does have the kind of signature shot making and imagination that we typically apply to European links style golf. Roughly 51% of fairways in the last 4 years. An extremely low number in terms of average hit, but the lowest missed fairway penalty of any PGA Tour venue during that time span. Now, here's where it's weird. The non-rough penalty, which is basically when you find one of those fairway bunkers, the penalty is 0.6 strokes, making it one of the highest recorded of any course since 2015, according to Data Golf. The approach shots are definitely extended out to a further range of 175 yards and beyond, for especially given what we've seen the last couple of weeks with short courses like Travelers, TPC Deer Run. That's kind of my overarching notes on the Genesis Scottish Open. Give me kind of your breakdown on the scorecard, the yardage, the agronomy, all that good stuff you always bring to us.
Yeah, we're in Edinburgh, Scotland. It's a great adjustment to the PGA Tour schedule they made in 2022, where this will be the week before the Open. It was the John Deere before that, and the John Deere was your last chance to get into the Open. Now this is your last chance. And the John Deere still sends you on a charter from the Quad Cities to Edinburgh. So good on them for doing that. Yeah. That's where Chris Gotterup probably is as we speak, traversing the Atlantic Ocean for week number 4 of his bender. And he will be interesting to keep an eye on. We'll get to that later, but obviously you're defending champion. Like you said, longer hitters do well here. I get a little nervous about throwing the proximity buckets into a model on weeks like these that are so wind exposed, because you're talking about a really big difference, or like a delta in the club you're hitting if you have like a tailwind at your back or in your face. If you have a hurting wind, you're gonna have a lot of long irons. It's gonna be a lot of difficult approaches here. Like you said, you can kind of spray it around here, and the leaderboard just continues to lean more and more towards those bombers. Rory is always a factor in here. He just doesn't think twice. It's driver on every single hole. How far down can I hit it? Give me the shortest club I can into these greens. The greens are large. They're slow because it's so windy. We tend to see that correlation. The windier the course, the slower the greens. They're fescue based. That's what we get overseas in Scotland, England, in this neck of the woods. So sometimes I do give people a second chance if they're a great tee to green. They can't figure it out putting. It's such a different situation putting on links courses where the wind affects it. I'm going for tee to green, guys. You don't need to be a great putter here. And if you're not the best around the green player, you get more of those like Texas wedge types of, you can putt it from off the green here. So you get a lot of options, but I'm always looking for artists. We've talked about artistry at the players, certain courses where you just got to have a lot of shots in the bag. Certainly Chris Gotterup fits into that with what he put on display at the John Deere Classic. So it's no coincidence he's been a winner here. Good event. I would say great event, actually.
Yeah.
I like watching it. I like overseas golf time shifted viewing. It's not the perfect like choice of course for me. It's a modified links course. There's so many links courses we could have chosen from. It's like the Americanized Scottish Open. Don't love that. Don't think that's necessary that we've done that, but I guess it's the market of Edinburgh we want to get to. So for whatever reason, I'm excited for it. I love a time shifted view. Next 2 weeks we've got some overnight golf, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah, just to add in, I do have a little bit of the very early, we're recording this on Sunday night prior to the week, weather forecast and wind forecast. Pretty tame by Scotland standards.
It is, yeah.
Next week. Now, we know that this can change hourly and instantly over there. A little bit of rain, showers possible. 19-mile-an-hour max gusts, early predictions. So that's nothing noteworthy. Some of the key stats that I have put into my model this week, I just want to know, how good are you at links golf? I mean, you can ratchet off any of the courses that have hosted the Open. A lot of the DP World Tour courses can be factored in there, as well as past experience from the Scottish Open. Driving distance, the last 4 years has heavily favored distance over accuracy. So I am going to put that in my model. Approach proximity from 175 yards and beyond. Typically, it's about a third of the golf shots you'll hit. Last year, it was over half. 52.7% of golf shots were over 175 yards. And can they play in the wind? Even though it's not forecasted now, that is a prerequisite if I am going to take you on my card this week. And I did look a little bit at incoming form for the most recent winners. Gotterup, frankly, has had 4 wins since he won this thing last year. But before that, had never really done anything. But you could see inklings of him playing better. He had 4 top 25s in his previous 5 starts. Bob Mack played great at the PGA Championship prior to winning. He was also second in the year before, so some lead in there. Rory was second at the U.S. Open, came here and won, and had also just won the Canadian Open before winning the Scottish Open. And then Xander won the Travelers, came to Scotland, won the Scottish Open. So these guys have shown the ability not only to win, but to produce good results leading in. Even Aaron Rai, before he won here, was second at the Irish Open the week before his win here. So you want to look for guys who are playing really well very recently in terms of the last 5 or 6 events. I think that has been a very corollary stat with success here over the years.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing we should touch on is just the makeup of this field being a coach-sanctioned event. You got 75 top players from the PGA Tour, 75 top players from the DP World Tour, and I guess because we're on some sort of quote-unquote hiatus on the LIV Tour, a lot of the LIV players who still maintain their DP World Tour eligibility kind of push their way into this event too. So we get some familiar faces with the Rahms and Reeds, and
I'm here for it.
Those types of guys. I like it. Yeah. I mean, I want to see these guys playing together as often as possible. So I'm excited that we get that. But, in the early days of the Scottish Open, I would really dig into the DP World Tour guys and be like, I don't know as much about these guys, and they're playing in Europe. Maybe there's an edge here. But to your point, it really does seem like the cream rises to the top here. So there's not a ton of guys from the DP World Tour side that I'm super interested this week. And that's different from how it felt in years past.
All right, let's make some bets.
All
right, the betting board this week, as always, each and every week, brought to you by the good people and the most insanely well manicured and performance polo and t-shirt company in the world, B Draddy Golf. B Draddy is the one who hooks us up each and every week. The promo code to get yourself some Draddy, RTL20. As we get into the fall, it starts getting to be hurricane season down here. You get those afternoon storms every day in Florida. You best believe I got my Draddy rain jacket tucked away in the golf bag for the next couple of weeks. You don't want to get caught out in the rain. And the cool performance polos are keeping me as cool as can be in this 95-degree heat and the humidity. How you doing with your Draddy this summer, John?
Fantastic. It hit 100 here in New York when I was golfing on Friday. Wore the Draddy. Felt like I didn't even break a sweat. You know, usually you're done. You're looking like Lucas Glover, dripping, sweat everywhere. Not pretty. Not the case with B Draddy. No one could even tell I was golfing. I could have been laying by the pool, which I was after the round because it's so comfortable. I don't want to take it off. Draddy's taking care of me. RTL20, take care of yourself.
True story. 2 of the 3 guys I played with today brought 2 golf shirts, right? They got another one in the cart with me. Not a problem that you're going to have if you've got B Draddy on. Clean fabrics, texture. The texture is key. You keep the coolness. It keeps you off your skin. You don't sweat as much in it. All right, let's get into some bets. Let's pull up the board here for the Scottish Open, and he's right there. You just talked about him, John Rahm, entering the field in the PGA Tour co-sanctioned event. Scotty Scheffler, your favorite, at around 5-1. Rory right behind him at plus 910 over on DK. Then you get Rahm at plus 1125. Matt Fitzpatrick, Xander Schauffele, Tommy Fleetwood, Ludwig Oberg round out the favorites for this event. John, tell me what you're thinking.
Yeah, I mean, heavyweights all make sense here. Scotty is your reigning Open champion. We know he's doing just fine on links courses. Got a couple top 10s at this event. A worthy favorite coming off the playoff loss. Still looking for that first win since his first start of the year. Deserving favorite. Rory's been, I want to say first, second, the last 3 appearances. He's just always right there. It was 1 stroke shy of Gotterup last year. It was a really fun watch last year between Gotterup and Rory. The local fans, you know, Rory gets a lot of hate in the US for whatever reason. He gets chirped at a lot. He got chirped at the PGA Championship. Sometimes he brings it on himself. A lot of times he doesn't. He gets a whole lot of support when he goes back to Europe, and he plays well everywhere in Europe. So, you know, 9-1 is a good number. We've seen Rory play well pretty much everywhere he goes. Form's great. Something to consider this week. I have to really look at the weather if I'm gonna do a single bullet. I don't think I'm gonna do that, but I think it's not a bad thought to go there. Rahm, I'll never get right. I give up on Rahm when it seems like he's going to do great. I bet him and it doesn't go well. When it seems like he's cooked, he plays his best golf. I can't get it right. I'm just passing on Rahm. Don't listen to anything I have to say about Rahm. I can't give you any good information. Fitzpatrick is the guy for me. I'm almost definitely betting him. I bet him last year. I believe he finished T5. Great links player. Lost in a playoff here to Minwoo, I believe, in 2022.
Yep.
Just playing great golf. The only thing I didn't like about Fitzpatrick was the driver at the U.S. Open. Turns out he had like a cracked driver. Put a new one in the back at the Travelers, drove it immaculately again at the Travelers. So I have 0 questions about Fitzpatrick. He's playing great. He's no longer the outright most wins on the PGA Tour this season. Gotterup has caught him, so now he's got to take that title back. He's got to get that 4th win. I think a lot of people gravitate to him. There's just not a lot of reasons not to bet Matt Fitzpatrick from my perspective. But what do you think? What jumps out to you on this board?
Well, 2 things. I love Fitzpatrick. I wanted to go here as well. Not only does he have the course history here, he has the incoming form that I'm looking for. Also, shout out our guy, Rick Gaiman, who has an excellent course stats page, which pulls together data from all the courses, and it will show you your most corollary spots. And they kind of surprised me. So his most correlated spots to the Genesis Scottish Open on the season are Harbour Town, number 1. From a stats model, Matt Fitzpatrick won there. And number 2 was the Travelers. And he just played really well down the stretch at the Travelers, was in that tournament as well. So 2 very good fits for Matt Fitzpatrick. He goes back there. I love that he has like the 3rd lowest on average apex in terms of off the tee of anyone in the field, which I think sets up tremendously for Scottish or any sort of links golf. It's going to work really well in Birkdale as well. But the thing is I started my card, and the only pick that I have, we'll get to him on the next page, is at 40-1. So I have the room for Rory, and I got a lot of money in the account right now.
Yeah.
Digesting, it's marinating in there, and it's screaming to me, this is the spot for Rory. He's been over there, as we know, practicing. The course form is tremendous. His driver is an absolute asset here, maybe more than any other course that he'll play in the European Rota. And I just feel like this is a pretty fair price given his course history, how well he's played here, and some of the incoming form that he has this season, which I'm pretty high on. So I have not made that decision yet, but I'm leaning toward Rory at the moment just because I haven't really felt a strong inkling to anyone else in the 20s or low 30s, which would kind of force my hand on Fitz.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. Yeah, so it's T2, T4 first, his last 3 appearances here. I just remembered him being a big factor the year that Bob Mack won. I guess he fell off at the very end of it. But I just think he's a very cerebral player. Like, fans matter to him. And this is the first time in a really long time that the fans are on his side again. So I understand the Rory play.
All right, let's get to page 2. Oh, let's talk about Rahm real quick. You mentioned you just don't get him wrong.
I don't get him right.
Excuse me. You don't get him right. How has he been playing on Live like this season? Is there a lot of form to speak of there? Or do you think that it's awkward that he's going to be showing up to this event as part of the, he's settled the deal with the DP World Tour? I think I'm just excited to see him here and get him back in the mix with these guys, but I'm not betting him.
Yeah, he hasn't had a bad start on Live. He's won twice on Live. We haven't seen him since the U.S. Open where he missed the cut. Shinnecock, I think, is a fairly good litmus test. Obviously, significantly more difficult than this, but you have to hit similar shots. You have to hit flighted tee shots and approaches. You got to manage the wind. You need to be, crafty around the greens. And they slowed those greens down quite a bit this year too. So even the way that those greens played, more undulated, but you'll hit similar shots. And he did not pass that test. He's had a lot of time to work on his game since then, but he looked awful then. Again, I just don't like talking about Rahm because I'm always wrong no matter what side I take. And I've taken both sides all year, and he will surprise you. If it looks like he's trending one way, he goes the other way. 11-1. I've bet him at longer. I've bet him at shorter this year. I don't know.
Yep.
His
fellow Legion 13 teammate is going to come here on the next page. Here are your 30s to your 50-1 players. Victor doing the row there. I had to throw that in. Victor at 32-1 coming off a win. Wyndham coming off a win, 32-1. Gotterup coming off a win at 32-1. Then you get Pat Cantlay, Siwoo Kim, Justin Thomas, Bob Mack, 42-1 on Tyrrell Hatton, 46-1 on JJ Spawn. I'll go in here. I'm taking Bob Mack. He's got a first and a second here. He's just been, I don't think people realize how good he's driven it this year. He has gained off the tee in 15 out of 16 starts in 2026. That is not normally, I would say, like a strength of Bob Mack's game. I think of iron play when he's on. I think of short game. I think of putting. All things that are also going to serve him really well here. And the approach play, which had not been complementary to that off the tee prowess this season, is finally coming around. He gained 3 on approach in Canada, nearly 4 at Travelers. Those are 2 of his best 3 starts of the season. He is trending. I expect him to putt it very well and feel right at home in Scotland and not have to deal with any of the intricacies that come with international travel, sleep, all that kind of stuff. You can kind of put that aside. Bob Mack will be right on schedule and ready to play and attempt to win the Scottish Open. He's trending in the right direction. I think 38-1 is a fair price that I'm going to back him at.
Yeah, rare, very rare for a full-time PGA Tour member to live overseas. He lives in Scotland. He does not have like a Florida home. He does his like 3-week stints and then he flies back when he has an off week. He loves Scotland. He loves spending time here. I'm sure he's been looking forward to these 2 weeks for the whole season, right? So he's right at home. I bet him last year. T65, his only blemish of his course history. So who knows? If I'm not on him, that's a great sign for you. Hatton for me will be popular. I was very confident in him at Shinnecock. laid an egg. Him and the Legion boys just didn't show up in New York. But he's a links guy. He is probably, of all the modern players, he's most known for his prowess on the links. So he will be a popular consideration this week. Clark and Gotterup, I could, hot hand.
Yeah, I know.
Wyndham just brought the U.S. Open trophy to the World Cup game in L.A. I was drinking out of it with his girlfriend, but didn't overdo it. The week after, between the U.S. Open and the Travelers, thought he was going to show up hungover, didn't, competed. So you might just ride the hot hand there too. You talked already about the guys who are winning have posted that win very soon before. So these are two really good numbers because we have such a top heavy field. I don't hate the two of them on a card this week.
Yeah, I think Gotterup will probably crash as things kind of unfold come Monday morning a little bit. The one that I was really interested in, I'm still drawn to JJ Spawn just based on his approach play has been unbelievable. Maybe the best in the field. I'm hoping that I maybe get some drift here, maybe 55 or 60, because his links course history is atrocious. Never really played there well, but it's hard to ignore someone with the iron play that he had. Incoming form in the last 10 starts is quite awesome as well for Spawn. 6 top 15s, 4 top 10s, and a win in his last 10 starts coming in. Playing very good golf. I mean, this is a reach. Would you consider any linksy elements to Oakmont in the least little bit?
Well, I would to
okay.
I would to the Oaks course where he's won twice. I think
that's TPC actually, San Antonio, the links of San Antonio.
Yeah, he's won there twice in high wins, which tells me he's a good wind player. So if I was going to justify a narrative for Spawn, I would say that. But you know what? It got pretty nasty at the weather. It felt kind of Scottish conditions with the rain coming down and a little bit of a breeze at Oakmont. So sure, if you want to run with that, he can conquer difficult conditions. You hope that it gets a little nastier then, because right now it's a little calm in the forecast.
Get a little nasty. The lakes of Pennsylvania and the links of San Antonio have to be pretty similar to Scotland. We'll see about that. Page 3 of the odds board. Past champion Min Woo Lee, all the way up to Koepka, who gets in this field, and Jake Knapp at 70-1. If you're here with us on YouTube, thank you for being here. You're incredible. Go on and subscribe to the Read the Line channel. That way you can enter into all the contests that we do throughout the season. You'll get notifications. You'll make sure this pops up onto your feed each and every week as we go for 3 consecutive winners. And John, I got no one on this page right now. I do think that there is a value proposition that can be made on Alex Fitzpatrick. He's still playing such good golf. Data Golf now has him as the 24th ranked player in the world, which is a crazy ascension for Alex Fitzpatrick. He goes back to Europe where he won before coming over for the Zurich and has kind of just stayed in continued form and continued to rally. Anyone else on this page jump off to you, or you think could potentially end up on your betting card?
Yeah, I actually like a few of these guys.
Okay.
Min Woo Lee has won on this course before it became a co-sanctioned event on the DP World Tour. He won. Doak guy has also won at Tom Doak's Memorial Park, where he can spray it around, hit a driver heavy approach, hit it long. The putter has just vanished for Min Woo Lee, but the tee to green game has been really good. So when we're talking about this being such a different surface that you want to buy low on guys like that, Min Woo is a guy that comes to mind for me. Just a really ideal course fit. I would hope that we can get a better number than 50 because his last 3 starts have been T62 cut. So I want a better number than 50 on Min Woo, but if I can see something at like 60, I'm interested in that. Christopher Rayton is a similar kind of profile. I'm grandfathering Chris Gotterup into Scandinavian territory for you. So if you want to go 3 straight Scandinavians, you might want to look right in the high off of that big win today for Norway over Brazil. We'll see if they have another game tournament week that he'll be distracted by. I don't know who they play next, or actually they might play England next. That'd be real interesting.
Yeah.
In Scotland, if that's going on, you'll get the Norway fans following him. But a good course fit bomber, plays well in Europe. Alex Fitzpatrick, I think I agree with you on that one. And then Kitayama was the guy that I spotlighted this week. Had a runner-up finish to Xander Schauffele here in 2022. He's won twice overseas in Europe earlier in his career. He's won in the wind at Bay Hill. His ball striking numbers are absolutely insane, and they have been for like a year and a half now. He's going on a streak of it's over 30 starts in a row. These games stroked on approach. Absolutely insane. Just needs to get the putter going, which has been a little hit or miss for him. But again, I'm just going to take a stance on the tee to green guys who've shown that they can putt on links courses before, and he's one of them.
Okay. Love it. Yeah, love a good Scandinavian pool there. Big win for Norway earlier today. Let's get to page number 3. We got some long shots here. This 92-1 on Tom Kim. See, you talked about this, and I feel like we could very much be in a Wyndham Clark situation here where we touted Wyndham at Shinnecock like 3 weeks before and then didn't bet it. As far as I understand, he is not currently in the field at Royal Birkdale. He needs a good finish here to get himself elevated into that. But Tom Kim is highly motivated, not only by that, he's got one eye on Birkdale. He's got one eye on Medina right now. And he is showing up right on time in the summer of Tom Kim to make another President's Cup team. He is astonishingly second in the BetSpurt stat model that I ran, which is up now if you want to check out my model, ahead of Scotty Scheffler, just behind Rory McIlroy. The links putting for Tom Kim throughout his career has just been awesome. He is 4th best in the field in approach over the last 30 rounds played. And nobody in the field has generated more birdie opportunities inside of 15 feet in the last 30 rounds than Tom Kim. He keeps giving himself looks. He putts very well on links golf. The stat models are aligning with what my eyeballs were telling me with watching him at the John Deere, and it was a couple bad swings, but he had another good start. I think 92-1 is very generous number there. And the other one I got to ask you about, Eugenio Chacarra.
Yeah.
Back-to-back victories. I'm not the only guy coming in here with back-to-back wins. Eugenio Chacarra, the KLM Open and the Italian Open. We talked about Eugenio about 2 months ago, maybe, when we started the True or False segment. And at that time, he was 13th or 14th in the DP World Tour standings. We were talking about this potential opportunity that he has in front of him to play himself onto the PGA Tour by finishing inside the top 10. That's now almost a lock. He's 3rd in the DP World Tour standings, almost a shoo-in at this point. He began the year 224th in the Data Golf World Rankings. He's now up to 46th. The last 7 starts are 2nd, 9th, 18th, 10th, 22nd, 12th, win. He's so hot right now, 96-1. He stays over there in Europe. Feels like a bet I got to make.
Yeah. I was going to say the same thing. He's number 1 in the Race to Dubai rankings, I believe, or outside of like Rory, who gets like the major results counting towards it. Like, of the guys who are playing now full time on the DP World Tour, he's the best option. So if you're going to bet, if you're interested in betting a guy that you can't bet any other week on the PGA Tour, Eugenio at 96-1 is definitely the guy coming off back-to-back wins. It's really an indictment on how little the odds makers think of the DP World Tour, that this guy can win back-to-back events and still be 96-1. So I may be there. We'll see. It's a great number, so we'll see how I build my card. Definitely with you on Tom Kim. I might just bet Tom Kim. It might just be the July of Tom Kim, because I bet him at the John Deere. I'm interested in him here. I will bet him at Birkdale if he gets in. And then you've got like Rocket and 3M after that, which he's also played very well at too. Even Wyndham after that, he's won at. So like, it's a Tom Kim summer. I'm just jumping in. Well, for better or worse, I'm there. Hopefully one of these weeks he wins and we get back on the board. So we're lockstep on those two guys. Otherwise, I see Penge on the graphic. Seems like he's over the vertigo spell that took him out of Shinnecock.
Yeah, I mean, he withdrew from Shinnecock for vertigo.
Yeah, he did. Like a proactive, like a week out. He was like, I'm just not going to be able to do this. And then it seemed like, yes.
So his last start was the PGA Championship. So it's been a while. I only spotlighted him here because he was T2 last year at this event. Obviously, with his power and distance, this would normally set up fantastic for him. He was in such a good run. He was place firmly on everybody's radar when he finished second to Gotterup and kind of outplayed Rory in the Sunday last year at the Genesis Scottish Open, and then was like a hot pick at Portrush for everyone. I don't know. I hope he's well. But we've only seen him twice since the Masters, and it hasn't been good.
Well, he just finished T9 at the DP World Tour at the BMW International Open this week that ended today. So that was his first start in a while. See, I don't know with vertigo. You know, Jason Day had vertigo. He
in his prime.
Right. Yeah. He looked great. He looked like he was winning tournaments, and then boom, it hit him. So like, it's one of those things. If it doesn't flare up, it's perfectly normal. And then sometimes it does. I don't know. If you want to sign up for that, beyond 100-1, may not be the worst bet. Obviously a great course fit for him. Last guy I'll say on here, Michael Brennan. I was kind of hating on Michael Brennan all week. I was betting against him. I did hit a matchup with him against him last week because he's all driver and not much else. But if we're buying low on the putters and we think this is a different surface, the driver's going to do real well at the Renaissance Club. So Michael Brennan, you get a long number on him, promising young talent.
All right, John. Another great episode of Preferred Lines in the book. I'm going to do my best, if you're checking out the episode right now, to edit as much into the show possible as we can get out of the Josh Carpenter interview. He was experiencing some technical difficulties. We apologize on his behalf. He felt terrible about it. He sent me a nice text. Wasn't his fault. We're going to get as much out because I think that he had great stuff to say that is extremely valuable, but I want to make sure that we can hear all of it. Next week, huge news. Subscribe. Listen to me. Subscribe to Read the Lines YouTube channel right now. You are not going to want to miss the Open Championship show. I'm worried. I don't even know if I should say this because I feel like I've jinxed the last couple of podcast guests that we've had. But we have lined up someone who's playing in the Open Championship. Is going to come talk to us about Royal Birkdale. He is in the field. Exciting guest coming up. Killing it right now on the internet. We're excited to have him on the show. So make sure you check that out. We're going to try to get that up early next week as well so that you can get all your early Open Championship prep done right here from the good folks at Preferred Lines and Read the Line. John, any parting words before we sign off this evening?
How about you put in the comments of this YouTube video who you think Joe just described will be joining us on the pod next week? Because we're not going to tell you, but if you want to start the rumor mill, by all means, I'm excited for it. We got plenty of questions lined up for him. If he falls through, I've got my virtual swing coach is based in Scotland, and we'll be making the trip there. So we can fill it with him, and he can give you some golf tips. He's helped me out. I had one of the best rounds in a long time this weekend, all thanks to my boy Ian. Over in Scotland, lives in Edinburgh. So shout out to him. Shout out to Overseas Golf. Shout out to Links Golf. Looking forward to this week.
It's good to have a backup plan. Listen, here's what we'll do also. If my guy doesn't get to us from the U.S. Open who won the $250 to True, you have a deadline by the beginning of next podcast episode. But if you want to be the one, if you are the first person in the comments this week to guess the guest for the Open Championship show, I'll give you that gift card if this guy doesn't claim it. I don't think he's going to. So it could be you. You could have the best pair of golf shoes on the planet. Subscribe to Read the Line. On behalf of John, I'm Joe Idoni. This has been another episode of the Preferred Lines podcast. We go for 3 this week in Scotland. Enjoy the week. Thanks again. We'll talk to you guys soon for the Open. Peace.